Andy and I are going to hopefully give you some good information about tips and maybe some good treats that you might try not only this holiday season, but also throughout the rest of the year, and maybe incorporating into your lifestyle. Tonight, Andy has prepared 3 main dishes that are going to involve some foods that you may have already tried, and maybe they might be new to you. Whether you take some of the tips that we discussed tonight up here, or some of the ones that are in your handouts home, you may enjoy them and hopefully can make your eating a little bit more healthy throughout the holidays and throughout the rest of your life, possibly.
Yeah, and as Teresa mentioned, I tried to pick some dishes tonight that with the holidays coming up would be great to serve, if you're going to a family potluck and you're bringing one dish, or if you're preparing the whole spread for everybody who's coming over to your house. So, and again, nothing is terribly technical tonight. Maybe some different ingredients that you may or may not have seen or had before. And, we'll just try to showcase some things and do something a little bit, unique for your holiday season or any time of year, really. So that's what we're going to do tonight.
A couple things. I think the first dish Andy is going to highlight is called quinoa. Has anybody heard of quinoa? Have you tried it? It's a little bit of a twist, and one of the things I was hoping is that maybe instead of your traditional stuffing or rice dishes, you may try the quinoa in place of that. And one of the things that I like about quinoa is that it's very, very high in fiber. How many here have been told increase your fiber intake? Okay, do you know why? Anybody? What's that? Yeah, it makes you fuller, but also with diabetes it causes a slower rise in the blood sugar, and so that can be helpful as well. So quinoa is extremely high in fiber, it's high in iron, and it's one of the foods that's also high in protein. So if you wanted to try a meatless meal, this could be one of the grains that you could try.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is not truly a grain,
No.
It is actually a seed. Yeah. Quinoa. And it can be found at Hy-Vee's usually in their health market area. In those bulk things, you just pull it down. Cheap, extremely versatile. It's pretty neutral flavored, but that's nice because it can absorb a lot of different flavors. You can do a lot of different things with it. Casseroles, stews, soups, salads. As Teresa mentioned, like a stuffing, what we did tonight would be a great turkey stuffing or just a side dish. It is really, it's known as a superfood. I mean, I think you can literally eat this every day, just this, and probably live, because it's just so good for you. It's an ancient, well, they call it a grain. It's not really a grain, but it's an ancient grain. The Incas used to eat it. It was called the gold of the Incas, is what it used to be referred to as back in those days. But we got it here today. Again, you can get it at Hy-Vee. It's really small grain. I should probably get out of the cup or something and start passing it out. But really small grains. And there's 2 ways. You can cook it straight like this. You can also rinse it. The rinsing, I typically don't rinse it, but some people think that there's this natural coating on it called saponin. And it's just a natural coating that the seed has that helps protect it from insects and fungal type infections and things like that. But I don't think it's terribly bitter, so I never rinse it. But it's totally up to you. If you're going to rinse it, you'd want a really fine sieve, though, because the grains are so small you wouldn't want to run them through your sieve. So you get a really fine sieve, get some nice cool water, and just kind of work it a little bit. And you'll see like this foamy residue kind of come up. Just keep rinsing it until that's all gone. But that is kind of an optional thing for you. I don't really find it to be bitter at all. Cooking quinoa. Obviously, you can see we don't have ourselves a fully operational kitchen here tonight. So we're going to really just go through the motions and go through some of the processes. So we won't do a whole lot of cooking. Because I got to say, the last time I did an event in here, I set up the fire alarms, and it was a huge disaster. So, and that really did happen. So, lesson learned. But then, I'll pass it on in its raw state and in its cooked state. So you can kind of see, and this is before it's seasoned with anything, flavored anything. This is just pure, raw, cooked quinoa.
And another plug, too, for whole grains, which we can kind of incorporate this, is that we find that people that eat at least 3 whole grains every day have increased insulin sensitivity. So it makes your insulin work better, and also they tend to maintain their weight loss a little bit more so. So kind of a plug for that. Yeah, that's good. So we're going to, just like you said, pass around a few items here so you can get the feel of it. I have used this before this summer when my family was out of town. I thought I'm going to try some dishes that they probably would think are kind of weird. So I went out and I tried the quinoa, and I made quinoa stuffed peppers. And I was quite pleased with it. I made 4 large peppers, and I ate on it almost all week. And I was full. So it can be done.
Yeah, very, very versatile. Takes flavors really, really nice, and that's what's so awesome about it. So it's interesting. It really blows up. I mean, if you're going to the store, if you buy a couple cups of it or a cup or 2, you know, it's going to expand by 4 times, almost 5. I mean, this stuff blows up. So keep that in mind when you're cooking it too. Don't try cooking 4 cups because you're going to need a really big pot. Okay. So. Okay, that's the next step. So we're going to get into talking about cooking it. Cooking it couldn't be easier. It's like cooking like a pasta. You don't have to be technical with measuring out your liquid to grain ratio because it's really easy just to strain off your excess liquid. And then in that case, in that sense, when you kind of do it like that, it almost kind of washes it at that time too. So you're going to dump off that liquid that you cooked it in anyway. So you know, that's kind of another reason why I probably never wash it, because I dump off the liquid that I cook it in. So in this case, and you'll know when it's done. It takes probably about 10 to 12 minutes. I would just do like you can start it at a boil and then bring it down to just a nice simmer and just kind of let it go nice at a nice simmer like that. You know, try it, taste it. It'll be tender. You know, you'll as you progress, just like pasta. You know, you'll hit that al dente state and you'll hit that nice tender state. You want it to be nice and tender. It'll almost have like this interesting texture. It almost feels like it pops in your mouth, which is really cool about it too. It has a great texture. That's one of the things I really enjoy about it, especially in a salad or something. So that's the cooking method of it. Now for this dish tonight, we have it's quinoa with caramelized vegetables and sage. So they don't have a range. You know, if I were making this, I'm going to get just some nice olive oil in a medium-high hot pan. I've got just basic, everyday mirepoix. It's known as mirepoix in French if you want to impress people. It's carrots, celery, and onions. It goes everywhere, though. You know, there's a reason why everybody's grandmas and moms put it in every soup and everything like that, because they're aromatic vegetables. They add a lot of flavor to a lot of different things. That's why it's used everywhere. It's classic. It works at everything. So I'm going to have my medium-high pan going, and I'm going to just kind of keep these going until my onions start to caramelize a little bit. I get a nice little bit of color on my carrots. That's perfect. I got a little garlic in here, too. And at this point, I'm already going to have cooked off my quinoa. So I started cooking off my quinoa. I got that strained off. It's cooked. I got that set aside. I'm caramelizing my vegetables. When they get some nice color on them, I'm going to add my quinoa. I'm going to add a little bit of my stock that in this case, the recipe calls for chicken stock. You could use vegetable broth, whatever you preferred. If you wanted to use just plain water, you could do that as well. So I'd be kind of stirring this around. I got apples in this tonight too, which is kind of a good thing. Fruit and turkey kind of go together really nicely. Also, sage is really nice with turkey, and I love sage any year round. So, let's get this up here then. Is that better? Yeah.
I can hear better. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
I'll talk down like this.
You have excellent chopping skills there.
And when I cut sage is such a delicate herb. It's got these nice broad leaves to it, kind of like basil. You've probably heard of basil chiffonade. You can chiffonade sage the same way. So you take your leaves and just stack them up. This is the technique for chiffonading really delicate herbs like basil, things that bruise really easy. This is a great way to do. Stack them up. roll them up a little bit, and just come at them really nice and thin. Thin is good. This will help you from bruising them quite as badly. If you're just going to kind of come in there and mash them up, they'll bruise a little bit easier. Okay. So I got my stock in here. I'm just kind of letting this on low, medium, low heat, just heating it through. Season it with your salt, pepper, parsley, your apples. In this case, I'm just going off what the recipe card says here. So, everything's in there. That's it. It's done. I mean, that's literally it. I would taste it, make sure it's seasoned the way I want it. Yep, that's good. Good salt.
And keep in mind, too, that if you're watching your sodium, you can either up some of those fresh herbs, or you can use onion powder, garlic powder, any type of herb or a spice that says powder usually will be sodium-free. So. Yeah, and wherever you can, use fresh herbs. That's such a great way to add flavor and keep that salt content down. Like I said before, if you have the means and you can get a fresh herb garden going in the summer, do that, because you'll save a lot of money in the grocery store. But again, it's that much fresher and it's that much more flavorful. But fresh herbs are the way to go. Fresh garlic, all that stuff is the way to go. So that's going to be our caramelized vegetables with quinoa. What do you guys think? Yes? And about a half a cup of this has about 20 to 30 grams of carb or so, give or take. So it's pretty comparable to maybe a pasta type of thing. However, it would be loaded with protein and fiber, so you may get a little more satisfied with that particular type of product. It's very easy to take the flavor of this wherever you want it to go. If you wanted to do peppers or you wanted to do tomatoes, it takes to everything so well. So I mean, you can really go wherever you want with it. But this is just one thing. I thought this would be really nice with some roasted turkey. That's what I'm thinking. It'd be a good. And if you do use this with roasted turkey, one of the things you could do is you could take your plate and you decide, which foods you really must have, and you pick those foods, put those on your plate first, and you can use probably all know this, you can use these with the palm of your hand or your fist if you have a smaller fist. Palm of your hand is about how much? 3 ounces, or maybe half a cup when you're measuring other things like pasta and such. And your fist is about how much? My fist. About a cup or so. So you can kind of eyeball that, and that might be some of your favorite foods, like this quinoa possibly, or your potatoes, and then build around, put 2 servings of that, and then have your turkey or ham or whatever it is that you might, things that are lower carb. We're going to move into the next dish then tonight. It's going to be another side dish. It's going to be smashed red potatoes with celery root and sage. So again, we're going to take mashed potatoes. Everybody's had them a million times, and you're going to have them several times over the holidays, but this time we're going to do something a little bit different with them. We're going to add a little more vegetal element to it. It's going to have a unique flavor. This isn't your everyday mashed potato, which is, I think, when people start getting into between Thanksgiving to December, you start getting sick of seeing the same foods all the time. So to have something with a unique flavor to it is pretty welcomed, I seem to find. So, how many in here, too, think potatoes are forbidden when you have diabetes? Anybody? No? Okay. Okay, well, most of you have got it right. Potatoes, we can still incorporate them, but again, it's about the portion size. And one of the elements that you're using tonight is the celery root. Yeah. And so the idea behind that is taking some of these really healthy vegetables that will be higher in fiber and potassium, magnesium, and those kinds of things that can help with like blood pressure, blood sugar, those kinds of things. Putting them in the potatoes, which will help reduce the carb and possibly give you a little bit different flavor. So.
Yeah. And so obviously everybody's familiar with their red skin potatoes. We're going to leave these skins on because we're going to make a smashed potato. We're not going to make a mashed potato. And I prefer smashed potatoes. It leaves the skin on. I like potato skins. And it has a little more rustic, interesting look to it because it's got a little bit of chunkiness to it. It's got a little bit of those pieces of torn potato skin in it, so it's got a little color from the red potato. So I'm just going to quarter these, cook them off just like I would any other mashed potato. This is a celery root. Now I've cut the top off. When you see it in the store, it's going to have like this little miniature-looking little celery stalk on it. We don't eat that because we're after the root on this. It's a special variety of celery. The root, and this is actually a fairly small one. They can go anywhere between the size of a baseball up to the size of a softball. So they can kind of vary, but they're going to be really ugly looking. I kind of cut the root off too. I said, hey, I got to show what this looks like raw before I cut it all up today. So it's really ugly looking, but on the inside, it's got this nice white color. It's a similar texture, and it has similar cooking properties to like a potato. So that's why it mashes up so nice with the potato, because there's such similar textures. It does taste like celery. It's kind of sweet, and it's anything. You can eat this raw, cooked. It's great if you chop it real thin and put it in a salad. It's fantastic. Super aromatic. When you're cutting this up, you can smell it. I mean, it's like if you chopped a whole bunch of celery. But it's great cooked. It makes a great sauce if you make a puree out of it. It's really versatile. So soups, fantastic. So you're going to cut the top and bottom off. Okay? And then just kind of work around the side. You can use a peeler, but you know, these skins are pretty gnarly, so I like to kind of just go around the sides with a knife. Clean it down, and then yeah, I mean it's ugly on the outside, but it's pretty on the inside. It's got a nice white color. Lose some of that root.
And also, too, I'd like to add that not only with the celery root that you can use with the mashed potatoes, you can also use cauliflower or turnips or parsnips, which if you use half of that with potatoes, it can cut down about half of the carb intake and add a little bit of interesting flavor as well. And you're also getting in some good non-starchy vegetables, which we're always trying to plug or trying to get more in, of course.
So I'm just going to rough chop those two, about the same size as my potatoes, so they cook at the same time, cook at the same rate. So at this point, you're just going to boil them like you would any other potato that you're going to make mashed potatoes for. The nice thing about smashing potatoes, that's why I make them like at least once a night a week rather than mashed potatoes, because I don't have to get out the mixer, I don't have to do anything like that. I just one pot method. So you got them cooked, strain off your excess water, that's gone. In this case, I've got scallions and fresh thyme in here as well. So just take some fresh scallion. Let's say that my potatoes are cooked. We're going to pretend a little bit. Better that than, you know, the fire alarm going off.
So you're getting your samples now. Okay. Yeah. So how would you describe it? Tasting like celery?
Yeah.
Does it? Okay.
But a nice, unique flavor to it, right?
Yes.
Again, not your everyday mashed potato. I'm always a fan of using buttermilk or sour cream or something like that in my mashed potatoes. I like that cultured flavor, that little bit of sour flavor into my mashed potatoes rather than just butter and milk. But whatever you wanted to do. So I got some buttermilk in there.
And it tastes wonderful with the buttermilk and things. However, if you're using these routinely, you probably aren't going to want all the extra fat and the calories. So you can use a little bit of like a lower sodium broth and maybe kick it up with some of the herbs, which will help keep that fat and the calories down if you're trying to watch your weight a little bit. By the way, does anybody know how many pounds the average person will gain between now and January 1st? 8? Yep, I've heard 7, 8, around there. And about how many people will take off those pounds? by the end of the year. They don't tend to go away. And so that's where it's not between, like really on the day, that's the big, oh my gosh, I really have to watch it, but it's really between now and January 1st because everybody's bringing food, we're getting together with family and friends, and it's not only about the celebration, but a lot of it's wrapped around the food. So it's easy to pack on those extra pounds.
Yeah, that it is. So I've got everything in there. All I need to do is smash it up. You know, if you want to use your tomato or potato masher or big spoon, again, I would make sure you cook your potatoes so they're nice and tender, so you're not beating on them all day to get them mashed up. But just mash them until they start making a nice consistency. But leave some of those chunks in there because it looks good, and it's got that nice hearty look to it. And that's it. But that celery really adds a unique flavor, component to it. So. It's a mashed potato that, you have people over, they're going to remember. They're like, hey, what's this all about? This is good.
And you have the recipe, so that you can try it out. You can get it at Hy-Vee is typically where they're going to have all these different kinds of things. If you know what you're looking for, and the cost.
They're not the cheapest vegetable, but a little bit does go a long way because they're pretty potent flavored. So one celery root will probably do a pretty large batch of mashed potatoes if you wanted it to. So.
I have a question about storage. Like, since I live by myself, if I wanted to use it part of when, how would you suggest storing it, and how long would it stay good?
I would Ziploc it or tighten plastic wrap in your vegetable crisper. You might you'll get a full week because it's a root vegetable. Root vegetables have a really good shelf life, and they. Even after they're cut, if you don't cut into them, they really keep well, especially in the refrigerator. Because the root vegetables types of things that people were keeping in their root cellars, before refrigeration, carrots, turnips, parsnips, those types of things, because they did have that type of shelf life to make it, into the winter. And they're, later in the year vegetables. So, but you'll still get a pretty good life out of it, even if you have it peeled and cut into.
I just want to take a minute too and highlight the pomegranate. Has anybody tried before besides tonight? Okay, and can you see that? If you haven't seen the pomegranate before, these are extremely rich in antioxidants, and any kind of vegetable that you have, that's what we push them for. And antioxidants are really important because they help protect our body and our vessels, keeping them healthy. And so anytime that you can get any of those in, we're trying to get encouraging about 9 fruits and vegetables a day. And that's like, whoa, what do you mean I can hardly get one? But keep in mind that about the size of your palm, green beans can count, frozen vegetables can count. You don't have to every day come up with a gourmet kind of thing. Those can fit. Those little containers of fruits that you might get, fruit cup, packed in water or juice, that amount, that's 1 serving right there. So if you eat including each of those in your meals throughout the day, you actually probably could meet that by the end of the day.
Okay. Time to start talking about dessert. We can do it. We're going to have dessert.
And remember, what's stressed? Dessert spelled backwards. So.
What does it spell?
Stressed is dessert spelled backwards.
I didn't.
So, yeah. So it can, if you're stressed, what do? We eat dessert. And he has, would you do a pumpkin?
Pumpkin cheesecake tonight.
Yep. And did you do the light version or the regular?
This is the light version.
Okay.
So, you know, we're replacing regular heavy cream cheese with a reduced fat cream cheese. We pulled out the sugar and we used Splenda. My favorite part is definitely going to be we used fresh pumpkin, a pie pumpkin, you know.
All right.
From, I'll tell you, canned pumpkin has partially ruined my life, I think. The first time I had a pumpkin dessert was when I was in elementary school, and, you know, that pumpkin pie just burned me. I still can't get into eating pumpkin pie yet. I mean, all these years later. But had they made it with a fresh pumpkin, that would have been a different story, and I would have loved pumpkin pie, but I had to find out later in life. But making your pumpkin desserts with a fresh pumpkin is going to be the way to go. Once you do it, once you see it, once you try it, you will forever forget about canned pumpkin pie, or at least I hope so.
And keep in mind, to me, when I hear about that, it was very intimidating to me because I am not a chef by any means. But it's just I can cook a squash, and it's the same. Wouldn't you say?
Same principle, yeah.
Same principle. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
It may
doable.
take you a couple extra. The only time it really takes is the time to roast it. It's not a lot of busy work. You know, you can be working on other things while this is roasting. So we got a pie pumpkin. Cut it in half. Gut it out on a sheet tray. Just grease it up a little bit so it doesn't stick, or put down some parchment paper. That side down. Now you'll see a lot of people say roast it up side up with butter in it or something like that. No need. This will cook faster because it creates its own steam barrier, so it steams itself. So it's going to cook in half the time. And you just do this in an oven about 325, 350 degrees. A little pie pumpkin like this is only going to take probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And the best way to test it, if it's done, just press it. It'll feel tender. You know, if it's still hard like a raw pumpkin, give it some more time. But 45 minutes to an hour, about that temperature, you're done.
I assume that does need to be a pie pumpkin and not just a regular pumpkin that you make a jack-o'-lantern out of?
You know, I don't know what the ruling is of that, because I just took my pumpkins that I had from Halloween and I roasted them and ate them. So I don't know. I'm not.
I don't know that you probably want to be roasting the big ones, like
Yeah,
the
I
$30
was gonna say
pumpkin.
small.
But,
I didn't get sick, but I would probably stick to the smaller ones. And if you can fit a 80-pound half a pumpkin in your oven, that'd be pretty impressive
Well,
too.
I didn't know if there was a difference in flavor.
flavor.
Probably a little bit. There's so many varieties of squash and pumpkins out there. I mean, there must be 50 different types of edible squash that I could think of that I've probably seen or had. And then once it's done, let it cool completely. And peeling it couldn't be easier, or you can just scoop it out like you would any other squash. Then from that point, now if you have a food processor, this is a great time to throw it in the food processor and just pulse it till it comes out looking like this type of paste, like what canned pumpkin should look like. It should have this type of color, not that brown,
Burnt orange.
yeah, whatever color that is, a canned pumpkin color.
And you can use,
should
in
look
my
like
book,
this.
you can use canned pumpkin. It's okay.
You
'Cause
can.
that's-
I'm sorry, I'm dogging
yeah.
it. Yeah.
You don't have to go through all that. The pumpkin's all right with that. Andy, did you do anything, or can you do anything special with the seeds?
Yeah, certainly save them, wash them up, a little bit of just a touch of oil, to lightly coat them, salt, roast them in the oven, pretty low, about 275 degrees, and it'll take a while till they're, starting to lightly golden brown, and they'll be nice and crispy, and they make a tasty snack too. So save them, because then you could grind them up and make a cheesecake crust with those. If you really wanted to take it to, another level. But if you don't have a food processor, this is so soft, you can easily mash it up and make a little puree out of it, whichever way you wanted to go. So there we have that. Our pumpkin is pie ready. I have a food processor. You may not have one this big, but
It's ready to. The other thing too, it looks like squash, and this you could have a cup of this versus a half a cup of potatoes for the carb content. So you get a little bit, well, twice as much, and then also a little more fiber. And of course, it's orange, so anything orange is going to give you a lot more of the antioxidant properties.
this would be great folded into your mashed potatoes too. If you didn't have celery root and you wanted to make a pumpkin mashed potato, or yeah, do it. It'd be good.
Instead of sweet potatoes, you can have pumpkin mash.
So we're going to make our cheesecake custard. It is a custard because it's dairy product and eggs, and they're all coming together, and we're going to cook it. So I got reduced fat cream cheese. It looks, acts just the same as any other cream cheese. It's not quite as rich, obviously, because there's less fat, but that's what we're after here today. So, and you want to make sure you get this softened, about up to room temperature, so it's pliable, easy to work with, easy to puree. Again, if you do not have a food processor, I recommend a food processor for the sole purpose of, like a mixer, can incorporate a lot of air into your custard batter, and air is bad for cheesecakes. It causes things like cracks, and it doesn't bake up as nicely. So if you have a food processor, it doesn't whip in as much air. But you can do it. If you use a mixer, just kind of mix it slow. But if you have a food processor, this is the way to go.
And keep in mind that we're doing a light version. Why, if you haven't done it before, one of the purposes is it cuts about 150 calories off per slice, and it cuts the fat in about half. So there is some advantage. However, some of these desserts, if you only have them once a year, you might as well go for it and have it. It's only one time.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
And, I just realized I didn't bring any Splenda out with me, so we're going to act like this salt is Splenda since we're not eating this.
Yeah, that would be a vital mistake there, wouldn't it, if you were...
We are not going to eat this. So get a puree in, give it a little run with a spatula, get everything incorporated nice. So in this case, sugar, eggs, cream cheese, and pumpkin. That is all that goes into our custard base. Oh, and vanilla extract, which I didn't bring out either. But
in your packet of recipes, there is for a pumpkin custard. And so if you are trying to cut carbs as far as from pie and those types of things, the pumpkin custard is a nice dish that doesn't have a crust, and it can also have about half the carbohydrate as a slice of pie, or pumpkin pie, I should say.
So that's that. That's our cheesecake batter. Now we're going to make a crust. If you've never made a graham cracker crust before, it's incredibly easy. And they really do. If you make one at home, it's going to taste better than those preformed ones in the little aluminum foil pie pans. This will taste much better. So what I've got is graham cracker crumb, a little brown sugar, just a scotch of salt. You can have that optional. I like a little bit in there so it's not so sweet. I like that mix of sweet and salty. I think it really fills your whole mouth when you're eating it. And did I say brown sugar? Yeah. And then I got a little bit of melted butter in here. And don't go overboard on the butter. We're just looking for enough to get it to start to be able to form. We want it to be like a really dry, like if you're going to make a sandcastle with sand and you're going to, make your sandcastle mixture. We want it to be something kind of like that. It'll just kind of hold its shape if we're packing it. That's kind of what we want. We don't want it to be loaded down with butter. It doesn't make. Then the crust becomes like this mortar when you bake it, and you don't like that. And
yeah, I tend to make mortar, so that's.
And you'll notice when you're baking it, all that fat from the butter will start seep, especially if you're using a springform pan. It'll start melting out the bottom, and all of a sudden the tray that you got your pan on is all got all this butter everywhere. So. And then to make the crust, just get it in there, spread it around, just use your fingers and just kind of pack it in there. Don't need to be too thick on it.
Keep in mind too, when you have dessert on your holiday day event or what have you, eating it maybe a couple hours after the meal is kind of a good tip, just because you're having so much food coming in at one time. That tends, of course, make your blood sugar go up. So if you give that wait a little bit, then you can get that blood sugar out of that bloodstream a little more efficiently, and have the pie or the whatever dessert type of thing a little bit later kind of helps with maybe not having it go so high.
Okay, now at this point, once I got it all formed and pressed right how I want it, I'm going to put this in the freezer or in the refrigerator just for a couple minutes to let some of that melted butter congeal. And the purpose for that is so when you pour your custard in there, it doesn't come like if you're pouring water into a thing of sand and it all just washes away on you. It lets it set up a little bit so it doesn't go everywhere in this case. So then at that point, assume I made this all to proper ratios and this would fill up my pie. But you just pour your custard in there. Have your oven preheated to about 325 degrees. I think that's the perfect temperature for cheesecakes because they are kind of delicate when they're baking. If you go too hot, the top could burn. They can crack. So a nice gentle heat is good. And what you want to do is on the rack below your pan that you're going to have it in the oven, so my rack underneath here, I'm going to have another pan like a baking pan or something with water on it. We want that because it's going to create that water bath type thing. It'll help add a little bit of steam to the air in the oven, which just makes for more gentle heat. So it absorbs a little bit more gently and slowly into the cream cheese and cooks it slower. Because I've seen some cheesecakes come out of the oven with just like a massive Grand Canyon running through the thing. And when you got to cut it, you don't even know which angle to cut it at because there's this huge crack going through it. So that'll help prevent that. So do a water bath underneath and just do it nice and slow. Do not ever cut into a cheesecake when it's still warm because it is still warm cream cheese at that point. It hasn't had a chance to, the protein hasn't had a chance to like relax and everything cool down. So it'll be like hot lava. So.
Andy, what if somebody wanted to make this with like a fat-free cream cheese? What would happen? Or
that would be fine too. As far as I
okay?
know, I've made cheesecake once with fat-free cream cheese, and it turned out just fine. I didn't have any issues when it baked. So you could certainly go that route.
There, in your recipe packet, there is a Black Forest cheesecake recipe that involves the light cream cheese, and I would think you could do part regular, part non-fat to kind of cut the calories and the fat a little bit if you.
I think I went with low-fat here tonight because that was the only cream cheese we could get.
Oh, they had?
Yeah.
Okay.
That I could get from my vendor. But and then to tell if your cheesecake is done, a cheesecake this deep is probably going to run you about an hour, hour and a half in the oven. And I like to just kind of, I like to double check and give it a little tap test. And when the cream cheese is still warm, it's going to be pretty liquidy yet. But when it's getting close to being done, it's going to almost look like back what it is when it's cold. It'll jiggle a little bit, but not too much. It'll have a little bit. That's perfect. If you take it to the point where it's rock solid, it's definitely going to crack by the time it cools down. So if it's got a little bit of jiggle yet, perfect. Take it out. Let it cool at room temperature for a little while first before you put it in the refrigerator again. It's all about being nice and gentle. We don't want to be too fast with this cream cheese so we don't get any cracks. But that's it for, well, of course I had like nutmeg and cinnamon in this case, but it's really easy to make cheesecake and do whatever you want with it. If you want to add chocolate, if you want to do different flavors outside of just vanilla, because vanilla is essentially just vanilla beans and a nice vodka or any type of alcohol like that. So liqueurs and cordials and stuff work great for flavoring desserts, especially things like cheesecakes, creme brulees, ice creams. They work great. I mean, if you wanted to make a Bailey's cheesecake, pour in the booze. That's all. I mean, it'll taste like Bailey's and it'll be great.
But
or,
the alcohol, though, you
that
get some...
for the most part, I think cooks out, but I don't know. You may want to limit your pieces.
No driving after dessert.
But it doesn't take much. It's just enough to impart that flavor. A couple tablespoons will do it over the course of a whole cheesecake. I don't think anybody's going to, need a cab ride home from that one. But, who knows. But raspberry liqueurs, things like that, they all work perfect because they really do. Once you add, the Splenda will bring out the actual flavor, or the sweetener will actually bring out the flavor in those liqueurs quite a bit. So they work great for things like that.
What about using like imitating raspberry flavoring or something like that?
Yeah, just puree it right in.
That should be good.
You can even, now I've had some luck with these types of things. You see those nice swirled cheesecakes. You can play. You can sometimes it'll turn out if you do some of those like preserves and just swirl them in there. I found it works best if you hold back some of your custard. If you want it to be a different color, whisk that into it, so that way you got the same, things, the same densities. So when they're cooking, they don't just dissolve and become some weird color. They hold their colors and their shapes a little better that way. But yeah, anything like that, preserves, fruits, just puree them right in. Especially if you've got a food processor, that makes it easy.
And don't let all the fanciness of this intimidate you, because the holiday seasons are filled with enough stress as that is. And of course, we all know, what does stress do to our blood sugar? It can make it go up, but also sometimes our eating habits kind of go downhill with that, and we may get stressed about things. We don't really care if we check our blood sugar, or any of those. Our diabetes care may dwindle a little bit as well, and then that's where the pounds can pack on. So, paying attention to the stress management. And I also want to take a plug for sleep, because if a person gets less than 5 hours of sleep, they're found to have more weight issues and more insulin, or I should say more blood glucose issues. So if you're not sleeping well, talk with your doctor about that, because that can make a huge impact on your overall health, as you already may know. Now, did you get a chance to try the cheesecake? Yep. Okay, what did you think?
Yeah.
Tasty? Okay.
For reduced fat cream cheese and using Splenda, I was like, hey, this isn't bad. So.
Yeah, at first I thought he would be horrified, because he uses all this rich, good things, and
yeah.
said, hey Andy, what do you think about making?
Okay, I can do it. I can do it.
Of the artificial sweeteners used in moderation, you're not eating gallons of it here and there, really can be a part of a healthful eating plan. So yes, I absolutely agree. I've heard that, and I will get those papers across my desk here and there, but there hasn't really been any evidence, scientific studies that are anything against it. They have lots of studies that are saying it's probably very safe in moderate quantities. So unless you're drinking gallons of pop all day and just sucking it down for 50 years, there could be some remote, I'm sure, problems. The other little tidbit I wanted to mention too, and with Splenda, maybe you can elaborate on it, but when I've used it at home, I had trouble with things browning when I used it in place of regular sugar. And I saw where if you spray a little bit of like Pam or cooking on the top, it tends to make it brown up. So I don't know if you'd like things browned a little bit.
Have you used stevia instead of Splenda?
That is a new thing that I just found out about this spring. With one of our local growers and local farmers, they had it in their greenhouse, and I was like, "What is that?" And I tasted it. It's amazing how sweet it is, just in its raw form yet.
Right. You have to be careful not to put too much, because it's bitter if you put too much. But I don't know if everybody else heard what I
The
said.
stevia. So she's asking about stevia. Have you all heard of that or tried it? It's also marketed as Truvia. You might have seen that in the grocery stores, and it's not FDA approved yet. It's generally recognized as safe, meaning that there's enough evidence to say, yeah, it probably is safe, but it hasn't gone through the rigorous FDA channels and that type of thing. But it's been around for a lot of years, and a lot of people do choose to use that for their sweetener. And actually, I'd seen the other day in the supermarket that they have a vanilla stevia. It's in a little bottle. It's like a liquid. So that looked very interesting to me, too. You could probably use a little vanilla taste out of that. Stevia.
It can be kind of expensive too. So.
Yeah. But my thought is probably you don't use a lot of it, so it goes a long way. And it's marketed under Truvia, Truvia. The last little dish there you see somebody eating is the cran raspberry granita. What did you think of that? Okay, and that I think it's a wonderful, refreshing dessert, and that was used actually with full strength cran raspberry juice. So you could lighten it up a little bit with some of the lighter drink of that. And it has frozen unsweetened raspberries. So the punch there is you're getting those antioxidants in kind of a fancy way. And I would suggest if you are going to do a little fancy thing for the holidays, you could hollow out an orange and use the orange for maybe a salad or something like that, so you have the cavity of the orange. And then put some of this fancy granita in there and serve that up to your guests. And it looks pretty and looks like you really did a lot with it. I did make this for you tonight, and it says on the recipe, every 30 minutes you have to start stirring. Well, I wasn't going to get up in the night and do that, obviously. So I got up in the morning, and I did a quick stir, and I left it unattended and stirred every now and then, just when I felt, I better check it, and it turned out great. So not a whole lot of attending time.
Yes. And the granita?
I'm sorry?
The ingredients.
The ingredients, and actually I can get you a copy of that, but it's just cran raspberry juice and frozen raspberries and Splenda. That's all it is. The only major time-consuming thing was that you have to strain out the seeds, but I don't know. I don't mind seeds, but a lot of times that would kind of make the texture a little not so good.
So, what do you think? Anybody going to use any of these maybe, or at least give you some ideas? Hey, I'm going to go out and get some celery root. I might not put it in a mashed potato, but, I can do something else with it, or, whatever you want to do, yeah. Thank you.